X-Men First Class. I am first class, are we not?
Oh, you are definitely
we're not
first
second
class,
class.
Nick.
You can tell because I have the button up and no tie and the bokeh balls. The bokeh balls make it first class. Hey, I am excited to see this with you, Mike. This, for all who don't know, I have not seen any of the X-Men trilogy until Mike recommended that we start reviewing them. So I've come into this entire universe pretty much clean. I knew a little bit about... I saw the first half of Logan before the power went out in my movie theater, and I think that's about it for the entire X-Men universe. So coming into this, I've pretty much lost most of the time, but this movie was pretty good. So if you recall, I didn't really like the last one, which was Origins.
X-Men Origins, yeah.
Yeah.
No one really likes that one too much.
Yeah, that one was a little rough for me. But this one wasn't bad. I have definitely some big critiques, but I didn't regret watching it, and I was happy to have watched it. Now, will I watch it again? Probably not, but I enjoyed watching it. Mike, what would you rate this as out of 8?
Out of 8, I'd probably give this a 5, I think.
Ooh, okay.
Because I really enjoy this. I think it really... I'm saying really a lot. It definitely redefined kind of the X-Men universe, or it was a nice soft reboot. Because they went through, I think, X-Men 1, 2, and 3, which we haven't seen. I don't know if we have plans on seeing, just because I knew that Nick might not respond well to the very old acting, the old CGI, and the corny, I have the Empire State Building type of thing. But I think First Class does a really good job. Does a good job with, I don't know, introducing you to characters and making you care about them, right?
Yeah.
We'll get into probably Apocalypse and Days of Future Past at some point. But in that, you've kind of got a little bit more observation of who Magneto is. But in this, you kind of get the typical flashback of who Magneto is and why he is angry and why he is the way he is and why he has these beliefs. But no, probably a 5 out of 8. What about you, Nick, as a first watcher?
Yeah, I have a lot of critiques about how the movie is executed, but overall, I'd give this movie probably a 4 out of 8, so just about halfway. Not necessarily saying it got a 50% or an F, it's just saying it's not, it's not a movie I care deeply about, but it was one that I enjoyed watching, and it was a nice spectacle. I think it did do a good job getting me used to these characters in a way that I hadn't really, I knew nothing about any of these characters really, and so I'm coming in 100% fresh to all of these people. And I think they did a good job with the flashbacks at the beginning, showing you kind of where all these characters are coming from, what made them so special, why Xavier and the blue lady, what's her name?
Raven.
Raven. Thank you, Raven. I'm not even seeing that here on my IMDb. Anyway. Why the Xavier guy and the Raven lady are friends, and that was some good backstory that I did appreciate. So I was happy that was there. Now I also feel like they were trying to fit 8 movies inside of one movie, and it was getting all a little confusing. Especially they kept introducing new characters, and even in the second act they're introducing new main characters, which is kind of like, oh boy, there's a lot going on here. So anyway, I think for what it is, it's a pretty good movie. I'm excited to see how it fits into the rest of the X-Men universe. Obviously, I think a lot is writing on this. Now, there's also a lot of contrived moments, which I really hate when a movie is just contrived. And it's like at the very end, the CIA lady is talking to Professor X, and she's like, "Oh, like X-Men?" And he's like, "Oh, I like that." She's like, "Oh my gosh, jeez, seriously, guys!" The movie's just riddled with those super contrived scenarios. And you're just
we were
really?
kind of the first class of X-Men, right? It's like,
oh my gosh,
please stop.
It's like
roll credits.
That's just lazy writing in the words of Ryan Reynolds. That's just lazy writing.
Did you watch the end credits as well?
There's an end credit scene?
There is,
No, I
but
didn't.
it's very much the same where
Oh,
they
I
have
didn't.
the bad guy Magneto, I guess, break into the facility that they're holding. What's it called? What's her name? She's the Crystal Lady.
Oh, yeah. Was that at the end credits, or
Emma
was
Frost.
I think that was at the. That was before the credits, though, right?
Was it? I could have
I
sworn
saw
there's
that
an end
part.
credits because yeah, there was Eric
Okay.
breaking out Emma Frost from the jail.
Yeah, and he was like,
And she's like, "Oh, I see
have
you,
a hole in
Eric."
my
Or
life."
whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, thanks for
Oh.
saving me, Eric." And he's like, "I prefer Magneto."
Magneto. Dolly zoom into his face.
We
Yeah.
get it. No, it got pretty corny at that point. And there's a lot of corny moments in this movie, but I think
Yeah.
the effort,
Hey, I'm all for corniness as long as the movie doesn't take itself too seriously.
kind of like Spider-Man.
If the movie's like, yeah, if the movie's
Except
like
it's
trying
campy.
to be like this huge official blockbuster and it's trying to be, hit all these cinematic points and be really beautiful, it shouldn't really be corny. But a TV show like The Office can be pretty corny because it's less formal and less like cinematic. So yes, this is a pretty cinematic movie, but it doesn't seem to take itself super seriously, which is kind of nice, seeing how it is quite corny. So I think that they get a passing grade on the corniness, and so I'm willing to give that to them as a non-issue, for the whole movie. So should we give our little spoiler warning here? Possibly.
Oh, we already
some
spoiled
stuff.
everything at this point.
Oh,
With the
we
ending.
spoiled everything at this point.
But I mean,
okay.
yeah, I guess spoiler warning of we're always going to be spoiling these movies that we watch. Sorry if you haven't watched X-Men First Class and now you know the ending. But I guess now you can enjoy the rest of the movie that we're going to talk about. If you have watched it and want to hear our thoughts, if you want to watch the movie and hear our thoughts, go ahead, pause us, and go watch the movie. I would definitely recommend it. I think it's free on HBO Max, which is where I watched it.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, and if you want to watch the movie without our thoughts, you can just turn this video off and stop watching, and then you'll be able to watch the movie without our thoughts.
the thoughts.
So this movie starts out with just like the last one, Origins, had some flashbacks at the beginning introducing the characters. This one also has flashbacks at the beginning introducing characters. I kind of liked it. I like the format, being able to show a little bit of glimpse of motive. It's a nice way to fit a whole character arc inside of a 90-minute or 100 and whatever minute film. Because you don't have to, you can show the childhood trauma of what's going on. So I did appreciate that. Although I will say this whole movie has cleared up what a mutant is for me. If you remember, that was the biggest question I left Origins with. Like, what the heck is a mutant? What are the rules here? What can they do? What can they not do? More details, please. And so First Class really, for me at least, has kind of showed me enough of the universe where I can be like, okay, I understand what a mutant is in general terms. Now, I don't know every single mutant that's going to be in this series because I haven't seen them all yet, but I get the idea, and I also kind of get where they come from. I think it was the Kevin Bacon character. What was his name?
Sebastian Shaw.
Sebastian Shaw, yeah, Kevin Bacon. He was like, oh, they were born of the nuclear age or something like that. So, obviously they're all supposed to be mutated because of radiation. And so that's a little bit more believable, but then again, like the girl with the wings, like that doesn't make a ton of sense. Neither does most of this. So just don't think about it too hard.
There's a lot of interesting
guess is
mutants that they introduce in this movie. At least in like Origins, they kind of sprinkle in a few more of kind of just super soldier type of people. But in this, it's very much like, oh, there's a guy who controls nuclear energy. What? And there's also a lady who does mind control and can turn into a crystal. What? And then there's Wolverine.
Yeah.
What?
There's this girl that's normally blue but can be anybody. What? It's like super confusing.
There's a lot of overpowered mutants in this movie. I forgot about the amount of power that is in this whole cast of mutants that we're exposed to. And then a lot of them kind of either get killed off or just disappear.
Yeah. I was kind of sad that they killed off the one black character. I was like, oh, lovely.
Darwin.
I really, Darwin, that was his name. I really liked him. I was like, oh, that's just some interesting powers there, being able to adapt to any situation. Like, the writers could use that as liberty to do just about anything. You know?
I think that was the problem,
Oh,
is that they could do anything with this character, right? If Magneto tried hurling a missile at him, he could just turn to a rock. Or if the
yeah,
nuclear dude
exactly.
tried setting off a nuclear explosion or something like that, he could just, I guess, turn into a rock.
Just a rock.
If they tried
He's
drowning him,
basically
he just
the
sprouts gills. So he was a little bit too overpowered, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't want to.
but I was sad to see him. He was the first to go. I was like, oh, come on. That's
It was a pretty
bummer.
messed up scene, right? But it was pretty
Totally
very emotional in a way, because like you finally
adapt to this.
they wrote it pretty well, or at least they knew what they were doing. They're like, all right, we're gonna introduce you to all these characters. You're gonna like them, and then we're just gonna kill one off like 5 minutes later, with a nuclear energy ball going into his body, and then him trying to adapt to it, and he just turns into stone. I think, right? Does he explode?
I think he explodes. As much as I was sad to see that character, get killed off so soon, I do appreciate it when a movie is not too scared to kill off its own main characters. I think that's a big problem, especially with Toy Story and Pixar and the kids movies. It's just like, oh yeah, everybody lives happily ever after. When you're watching Avengers Endgame, Captain America's not going to die. Thor's not going to die. They're too valuable, right? And so I appreciate it when a movie can just be like, yep, they died. Sorry. And it's like,
I think they call that plot armor.
Yeah.
In a lot of media,
Most
where you get all these
characters have tons
superheroes
of
who are
plot
really
armor.
cool and neat, and they want to market them as much as possible to get as much money as possible, and or do whatever they want later. But they have to have some sacrifice in the movie, which they kind of did with Avengers, right? They killed off Coulson, and then they started his own TV show.
Yeah.
And look, he's
Yeah.
alive.
Well, they brought him back though.
Yeah.
Killed him, brought him back. It's just
Okay,
confusing. But
anyways,
I appreciated that. So let's talk about the actual plot of this movie. Can
you explain the whole plot to me?
I'm gonna try to, because I think it was an interesting enough plot to keep me interested through the movie. Yet it was kind of contrived, but yet it was also kind of standard, and so it was interesting because I was watching it and I knew where it was going, but I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen. So the plot is it's taking place in the 60s, I believe. 68 is what they said at the beginning, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this is basically trying to explain the Cuban Missile Crisis inside of this cinematic universe. And so they actually close with whatever Kennedy said on TV after the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is kind of funny. But basically, the main bad guy, Sebastian Shaw, Kevin Bacon's character, he is a mutant, and he is trying to make mutants rule the world, I guess, is what his whole philosophy is. He wants to have all the mutants rise up, overthrow humanity, because he thinks that mutants are genetically superior to humans, which in many ways they are. Also, it's fitting that he is an ex-Nazi, so there's that. Hello, YouTube algorithm. Don't demonetize us. We're just talking about a movie here. So I think that was pretty fitting with his whole ethos of genetic superiority. And then we had him kind of assemble his group of other bad mutants that are gonna come terrorize the world, basically.
One of them basically the devil.
Yeah, one of them literally looks like the devil. And then the other guy's Wind Dude, and then Crystal Lady.
I think his name is Azazel, which I think is also the name for the devil.
Azazel? Oh my gosh. It is Azazel. Wow, look at that. That's pretty funny.
Anyways.
So Sebastian Shaw's goal is to get the Russians and the U.S. to nuke each other out of existence, and then Sebastian would take all the power from these nukes, because we later in the film see that his power, his mutation, is to absorb power, and so he holds a grenade and absorbs the explosion of the grenade and can direct it back at people. So his goal seems to be to get the U.S. and Russia into a full-on global World War III ending nuclear war. And so he is plotting with both the Russians and the U.S. at the same time, which is kind of funny to watch. So he's trying to get a U.S. agent to put missiles in Turkey, and he's trying to get the Russian people to stick missiles in Cuba, just to raise tensions. And then he's going to trip trip the switch and start World War III and absorb that power. So that's the goal of the bad guy. The good guys, there are just so many of them. It's hard to say exactly what the plot is for the good guys because there are just a lot of them. And I think that's kind of what it needed to be. You needed to have a bad guy with an easy to follow plot line with a number of good guys. Like I think something that Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame kind of suffered from was there's just so many good guys, so many little separate battles. You got the people fighting Thanos up on whatever planet that was. You got the people in New York. It's just all over the place. And it's a little hard to follow, but with this one at least, it was easy to follow because there weren't too many bad guys, and the bad guys kind of all moved in one group. They weren't, divide and conquer. I guess they did when
very
the Crystal
iconic
Lady,
as well, right?
but
They weren't really overlapping in powers necessarily.
exactly, yeah. And so it was fairly easy to follow the bad guys' motives. But the point of this whole movie is to show you how the good guys got started and got unified. So this is how it needed to be. We start with Charles Xavier finishing up his PhD at Harvard, Yale, somewhere fancy. I don't know. He had a British accent, so he was smart. That's how British accents work. Last I checked, if you have one, you're smart. Anyway, so ridiculous, but it's so true. Anyway, so there's a CIA agent who is trying to figure out what some U.S. Army diplomat guy is doing. I don't remember his name. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
I like how you're trying to explain this whole thing. I think it's... Oh, there we go. It's Glenn Morshower who plays Colonel Hendry.
Colonel Hendry. Yep, there it is. There it is. You found it. Colonel Hendry. Yeah. So there's a CIA lady following around this colonel, and the colonel goes and meets with Magneto and the Devil in a secret room behind a club, and the CIA lady witnesses some mutants showing off their powers through a crack in the door. Which you got to think, if there's a telepath in the room, why doesn't she know that there's some lady watching them from behind the door? But anyway, whatever.
It'd be like background noise, right? It'd be like someone talking or whispering in the corner.
I guess, but I was kind of shocked the scene didn't end with Crystal Lady looking at her and just cut to black. Like that would have been more fitting. But
there's a few
the
plot
CIA
holes in this.
Go ahead. There are quite a few plot holes, but that's fine. Every movie has a few of them. So the CIA lady goes to the CIA director and is like, this colonel dude's dirty and we need to, figure out what's going on. And he brushes her off. So she finds Professor X, Charles Xavier, and she's like, hey, so what's up with mutants? And for some reason, he's just like, oh, yeah, I am one. And so whatever. Contrived.
Mutant and proud, Nick. Mutant and proud.
Exactly. So they all end up at the CIA headquarters, and Xavier's giving a. Also, hold on. I love how the CIA lady is. She sees literally the Devil disappear with a bunch of people, and her first thought is to call Langley, and after that doesn't work, her second thought is to go find someone who knows something about mutants. It's like, wow, okay. You go from like, we can do some instant action to let's do a 10-year dissertation and research on what this all is. Just kind of
the whole reason is that she goes back to her superiors and says, hey, he's in Vegas talking about nukes and he's bad. And her superior's like, no, he's right across the table from me. You're crazy. Yeah. So it'd just be like me walking up to you and being like, did you see Drew? He did a backflip off the Empire State Building. You're like, yeah, right, whatever, Mike. It's him streaming right now on Twitch.
Exactly. Yeah. So Xavier and Raven?
Raven, yeah.
No. Yeah, Raven.
Or are you talking about Moira? Because Moira's the CIA lady.
Oh, yeah. Moria and Professor X and Raven. See, there are too many characters. I knew this was going to be the biggest problem of this review. I was going to get lost with all the characters. But these three people are briefing the CIA about how mutants are a thing. The CIA doesn't believe them, and so Raven decides to just mutate into the CIA director's right-hand man and just stand there awkwardly. And then everyone's like, oh, mutants are real. Wow, how cool, amazing. Here, go have an entire CIA facility that's just been sitting here waiting for you. How convenient.
That scene's
uh,
actually a lot bigger than you think in regards to the whole universe because there's consequences for the reason, or not the reason, but yeah, I guess the reason that Raven revealed herself as a shapeshifter. The government kind of gets some ideas, basically.
Ooh. Well, I'll be looking forward to see how that plays out. But yeah, basically, then Professor X is like, hey, we need to find more mutants and build an army because, of course, the government loves building armies. So they build this basically, I don't know, dome thing that Professor X's brain gets plugged into, and somehow he can find all the mutants.
So they built it before
again.
for something else. Basically, it was some type of radar thing, but then they turned it into a antenna, able to reach out to all the different mutant minds in the world.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think at this point we should probably mention who's Magneto.
Yeah, you kind of skipped over that. What do you think of Magneto? I kind of mentioned at the very beginning. Eric, not Selvig, is it? Eric Lesher.
Lesher. Yeah, Eric's whole side plot is basically he was a persecuted person in a concentration camp, and the main bad guy, Sebastian Shaw, did some really bad experiments to him. His power is being able to manipulate metal and basically use the Force, is what it looks like most times when he's just, picking up guns and throwing knives. Kind of just looks like he's a Jedi with the Force. But yeah, so that's Eric's deal. He's a very conflicted character. I knew right off the bat, he's going to end up being the bad guy. I hadn't seen the end. I didn't even know that he was going to be Magneto or who even Magneto was. But I was like, yeah, he's going to be the bad guy.
He's got some cool scenes, though, not just in action, but in tension. There's a lot of scenes where he goes into Argentina to try to track down Shaw because for most of the beginning of the movie, he's trying to track down the bad guy because the bad guy killed his parents. In which, of course, the bad guy can... I guess we forgot to mention this. The bad guy can absorb energy and make himself look young. So that's why he looks the same age as he did back in World War II during the Holocaust. But anyways, the Argentina scene...
That was just lazy writing because they wanted Kevin Bacon, and I fully support this.
I guess so. He's a pretty good actor. But yeah, the scene in Argentina I thought was fantastic. A whole lot of tension where Eric walks in, finds out that these are the guys that he's kind of looking for, and is
he just starts talking to him in German, and they're like, "Oh,
their faces
where are you
immediately
from?"
go from happy to
oh,
very
crap.
worried because they realize that he's angry at them because he basically says, "Oh yeah, pig farmers like you and suit makers like you are the people who killed my parents." They're like,
and then he shows them the tattoo with his serial number on his arm, and it's like, oh. And one guy pulls a knife, and he just grabs it, and the dude's obviously pretty muscular, so I don't know if he was using his powers, but it stabs the bad Nazi guy in the hand with the knife, and gruesome. But yeah. Pretty interesting way to build tension and also show off the character's powers in a non-epic way. That
I mean, feels I don't think it was like, oh, I'm bending all these gates for random reasons, and I'm showing you that I'm developing his character. It's more like you can see his power through his vengeance against the people who killed his parents, which I think makes him a very well-rounded character just in this movie. And then going into the next two movies that we're probably going to watch, I think fantastic writing with Eric throughout these younger years of Magneto.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So at this point, Professor X is gathering his subjects, friends, I don't know, whatever, pupils.
He's
not
trying
subjects,
to find
pupils.
teammates
That's the word I was
for
looking
the
for.
fight because he basically realizes that to fight Sebastian Shaw, who has a whole bunch of mutant friends, he's going to need a lot of mutant friends. So they track down a lot of people, including Wolverine, who in this PG-13 gives the one F-bomb that PG-13 movies are allowed. Most fantastic line ever.
Go away. Okay. They back away slowly. I'm like, oh, okay, that explains why Logan's not going to be in this one. Okay. So we had the assembly of the team, very Avengers style, with about a 30-second scene of each of these characters and how they're getting found in funny ways, whether it's a taxi cab or an empty aquarium or at a strip club. These the character introductions are definitely tuned to each character, which is kind of funny. And it shows you just enough backstory so that you're kind of attached to these characters going forward.
I don't know if you caught the name of the guy who has the energy come out of his chest, but they name dropped him as Alex Summers, in which we've already met a Summers already in X-Men Origins.
Oh dear. See, I haven't.
Do you remember the guy who had beams coming out of his eyes?
Was that was Ryan Reynolds' character, right?
Okay.
Oh no. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, the guy with the sunglasses in the high school.
That's his brother.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, just fun
Do
fact.
we know
I
that
guess.
yet? In the universe, or is that just?
I mean, in the universe, if you paid attention to the names, yeah. But I mean, this is if you're watching it throughout when the movies were being released in our world, I guess, or as they were being written, you'd already know who. I guess if they name dropped Alex Summers, you're like, oh, it's Cyclops' brother, in which Cyclops is in all of X-Men 1, 2, and 3. But I think he plays a nice role, at least in these movies that we're watching, which we'll revisit him eventually, I guess, spoiler.
Well, spoilers, look out.
Yeah.
So they assemble the team, and then they all basically have a party at this top secret CIA facility, and I wasn't really a fan of that. I don't know. I hate it when people would just go wild for no reason.
Happy
It's
hour.
just kind of like, all right, come on, guys. Come on. Seriously? This is what y'all going to do? And I get team building, team bonding, whatever. But at the most inopportune time, Mr. Sebastian Shaw decides to drop in with his band of very bad, no good mutants. And they destroy the whole facility. And I really like the suspense that they built up with just hearing the bodies drop from the sky.
Goodness.
And you're like, what is happening? and it's like a whole 10 seconds of just hearing like thud, 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 thud. And then we zoom out and we see the devil guy just bringing up characters, security guards, whoever, up to the sky and then just dropping them and then going around and grabbing another one. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's so creepy. That's like probably the worst thing to do with that power, right? Like just dropping people. Oh my gosh.
Easy way to kill. You don't have to use your
Totally.
weird devil tail to stab them or get shot.
Totally. Yeah, and add a little bit more suspense to the scene. And then obviously they have the confrontation, and Sebastian Shaw's like, "Hey, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to see if you guys want to join me." And it's just like, "Oh no,
This is a
here we
recruitment.
go."
This isn't an attack.
Oh no. Exactly. It's like, oh boy. And so who joins him initially? This is where I was getting lost with who was going where and what was
Butterfly
happening.
lady who is named...
Butterfly lady?
Oh goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Angel?
Is it Angel? Yeah, it's Angel. Yeah. It's Angel.
Zoe's character.
Which she doesn't have angel wings. Which then I'm like, why is your name
What?
Angel? I guess because of her daytime job.
Yeah, her day job.
Or we would call it
We'll leave that
nighttime
there.
in some cases. Anyways, yeah, so she joins them. She's basically like, peace out, y'all. Come join me or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, nah. And then we get the Darwin death that we talked about.
Which is pretty sad.
Which what I find amazing is following this, then Shaw goes to Russia to try to get the Russians to put missiles in Cuba. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because both sides, both the Americans and the Russians, are just like, we don't want to fight, but we're afraid of the other people, which is very much kind of how a lot of it went IRL.
Yep.
And we get the scene where Shaw's just like, all right, you're going to be putting missiles in Cuba. And the Soviet general's just like, you're hilarious. No, we would never do that. Shaw's just like, I don't think you understand.
Yeah, you are going to do that. Yeah.
But it's funny just like trying to humanize the Soviets at that time. Just like, oh yeah.
I think it worked pretty well. It seemed like the Soviets didn't want to be a part of it as much as the U.S. didn't want to be a part of it, which, to be completely honest, from a not attached historical perspective, the Soviets really didn't want to be in the Cuban Missile Crisis as much as the U.S. didn't want to be. So, there were no good guys and bad guys during that crisis. Sorry if you go look at the history books.
It's all just unfortunate.
Exactly. It's just like no one wants to be here, but yet we're here, and they're all about to nuke each other. So yeah, this is pretty realistic. At least having both sides not really want to be in this crisis, but them both finding themselves in it because of gradual escalations on both sides that eventually led to this crescendo. Yeah. So Butterfly Lady leaves. Darwin dies, and then did Professor X come back after that? And he was like, "I'm so disappointed in you guys," or was that before? Anyway,
It was a little
Professor X was like,
bit before, because this was before Darwin died when Professor X comes in.
Yeah.
Because later he comes in, he's like, okay, we're going somewhere else, and they basically go to like his family's mansion.
I know. What the heck?
Well, I mean, he did say.
Like,
I mean, they set it up at the beginning, right? He's got this whole entire house to himself as a kid, and then he hears some noise in the kitchen, and he makes the note that his mom doesn't talk with him, basically, which is pretty sad. Yeah. But I mean, it stands to reason that his family's pretty rich, and so he's got this manor that this uncle has that he's able to use, which he totally destroys the bunker so many times because of Alex Summers.
Yeah, I don't know. That whole like, oh, by the way, I have a multi-million-dollar mansion just sitting here was kind of just like, all right, that's not believable. Sorry. Very few people just have multiple multi-million-dollar mansions lying around. So
and it
I'm
outlooks
say
a very big radar dish out in the distance.
I know, how convenient that Eric can use to figure out how to calm his mind or whatever. It's like, oh boy, whatever. Definitely fine scenes. Like, there wasn't a single scene here where I was like, oh, I hate this. It was just like, all right, this is another contrived scene. It's kind of that corniness, like, okay, yeah, just gonna whip out a mansion out of my back pocket. Why don't we? All right, whatever, go ahead. But I did appreciate the character development that they brought around through this, especially the dynamic between Charles and Eric. I think that was pretty good. Being able to have them kind of figure out how to be, quote, mom and dad to the group, and kind of lead the group.
It's part of the heart of the X-Men, actually. Those two.
Yeah.
In a lot of the movie that, of course, we're not going to see, that we're most likely not going to see X1 through X3. They have this eternal chess match that they're playing, which kind of is it's a nice physical visual of what their relationship is in life, which is a whole lot of chess moves of them dancing around each other, thinking that they're going to beat each other, and usually they don't beat each other. Where in this, they also have a couple chess matches as well. Just showing
I saw a chess match.
Yeah,
once.
they have very different ideals, very different tactics, and it's a nice way of kind of putting it like, oh yeah, it's just a chess match between the two for this movie, because they have a lot of times where they're arguing like, here's how we're going to do it. It's like, no, this is how we're going to do it. And then eventually you kind of see how they diverge a whole lot more to where this is the closest that they're ever going to be in regards to friends. And then just splinters, but you have this kind of brotherly love that they show in this, which puts a little bit more heart and makes you care about the characters a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, you get the whole
100%.
superhero training scene as well at this point.
Yeah.
Where you get the dude who can scream, who starts flying. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you're a banshee, which means you fly and you have a wingsuit. Okay.
Again, I just kind of rolled my eyes at some of this stuff and just said, yeah, this whole movie isn't corny and it's not taking itself super seriously, so I will allow it to continue to
Alex
be corny.
Summers generates hula hoops, but then they put a metal plate on him and suddenly it comes out of his chest like a beam. Okay.
Also, I think at this point, who's the bad guy? Sebastian Shaw introduces the helmet, right? I think at this point he starts wearing the helmet, and this is also the same problem that I have with Alex Summers' chest piece. It's just like all this technology just seems to just be, oh yeah, just now we have this, and oh, I think Hank and what's her face were taking that blue serum. It's like, oh, it's just now we have a serum.
Science.
It's like literally what?
Science.
And no, it's just like literally just science. And I love how Sebastian was like, oh, by the way, I have this helmet that the Crystal Lady's never seen before, and he's just like, now what am I thinking? And she can't figure it out, and she's obviously shocked that he has this. And I'm just like, okay, hold on. They just wrote that whole problem away with, oh, the Russians made it for me. Okay, how did you test it? How did you test it to work? Because if the Crystal Lady was the only telepath you knew, and she didn't know about it, then how did you test it? I'm confused.
I mean, I think that was the test,
worked,
right?
But
They gave it to him. They're like,
well,
"Oh,
that
yeah,
was
this
the
should
one test.
This should probably work."
But then it just works perfectly.
She's like one of the
on.
most powerful telepaths, but
Totally. Like, anyway, jeez. Whatever. So now we have the kind of rising action. We have our
literally rising with the SR-71.
oh, don't. Okay. So I'm sorry. I know a lot about the SR-71 because it's one of my favorite planes, and I'm a nav geek as well. And there is nothing accurate about that SR-71 at all. There is not a cargo hold. There is not a bomb bay. It does not hover. This is not how this thing works. Okay, I get it looks cool, and they're trying to find something that looks futuristic in the 60s, so I understand probably why they decided to use the SR-71, but like, come on, at least just take inspiration from the SR-71 and design a new plane of your own, because the proportions weren't even right. The outside of it has the same sized cockpit windshield, and the inside is just so much bigger, and you're just like, this isn't working in my head. Oh well. Yeah, so we'll get the part where Crystal is talking to Crystal Lady. Is that her name? What is her name?
Emma Frost.
Crystal Lady's name. Emma Frost. Yeah, Emma Frost is talking with the Russian dude at his private estate in somewhere in Russia, and Eric and Charles and some other people who I don't remember because there's a lot of characters. Was it just Mara?
Yeah.
Okay. They were all there, and they decide, oh, it's too dangerous to go in because Sebastian's not there. Again, these names. Sebastian Shaw's not there, so we're not going to go in. But Eric said, no, I got to go. And he runs in after her. And it's
has a pretty
like,
cool scene
boy.
of bending metal around people. And
Totally.
Guns
Can
everywhere.
you imagine having barbed wire just like coming up and getting you? Ooh. Yeah. So then Charles goes and tries to do some damage control and, help out. And eventually both Sebastian and Charles not Sebastian. Eric and Charles at the same time run into Crystal Lady. And it's like, well, that's contrived. They both barge into the room at the exact same time. But yeah, so Crystal Lady gets her neck cracked by Eric. Eric is using metal to crack her neck, and it's like, okay, but then that was fine. I'm glad that they cracked her neck so she won't shift back into crystal, whatever. That's fine. I get that. But then, like, we forget about that for the rest of the movie, and like,
well, she basically
the crack
gets
is
forgotten after that, right? She gets thrown into a U.S. government jail, and then she just maybe gives some exposition at one or two points, and then we don't see her till the end credits scene. She kind of gets
and then the
wasted
end credits
at this
scene
point.
though, she's in crystal form, and she doesn't look cracked or anything. So it's kind of like, all right, well, whatever. I don't know.
They had Molecular Man come in, and he fixed the granular structure along her neck so that all of the cell boundaries were fixed and they were not sheared.
That makes sense.
There you go.
I think you deserve a job writing the next X-Men movie because that is some quality writing right there.
That's literally just material engineering.
Explaining away the plot holes. I love it. Yeah.
You're missing on the scene that the Russian general is touching nothing when he thinks he's touching the lady on the bed. And
that was pretty funny.
You just see a guy.
Woo! Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you'll have to watch it because that was a pretty funny scene that I don't care to describe. Yeah, so I don't know what's next important. I mean, I guess
you
probably
have Hank
nukes.
trying to tell Raven that
there's just so much going on in this movie.
There's a lot going on in like this pocket of the movie where you have Hank, who is Beast, the blue hairy monster who's basically like the Hulk for the X-Men. Trying to tell Raven that, hey, it's okay to be normal. You should be normal. It's fine. I don't want to look like a freak. And then ends up turning himself into a really big freak because his chemical didn't work.
Because science.
And then you get a weird scene between Magneto and Raven that's kind of foreshadowing on their relationship and how it blossoms and forms.
Yeah. I kind of blocked that part out of my memory. Were they doing it?
Or that no, they didn't.
Okay.
No.
All right. I blocked that all out of my memory. We'll have to skip past that.
Nah, I think it's more of an admiration or something like that. But yeah, and then you get them in the really cool uniforms flying around in the not accurate SR-71 around Cuba, where they're in Cuba because
reasons.
Because Russia sends the missiles to Cuba and the U.S. gets word of it and they try making a blockade. Blockades. But yeah, and then you get this really interesting kind of scene of ships going to fire at each other, but then you get Charles intervening with mind control, and then you get Azazel doing his thing of killing people on boats.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you get the submarine lifting scene. I wanted to get your take on how not accurate, but an attempt at accuracy they did with it.
Okay, so it all depends on how Magneto's powers work.
Mm-hmm.
If Eric can lift metal and the metal then either becomes weightless or it's not like he's holding it, right? Like if I could make this trackpad levitate, it'd just float here. But if I was somehow like lifting this up with some kind of like invisible force shield, the weight would still be in my hand, right? And so as long as his Eric's powers, I keep calling it the force, as long as his force isn't attached to him, like he's not
it's a magnetic
like lifting
force.
it up with the force, if he's like repelling gravity or something with the metal, I think that would work. So as long as the SR-71, which we've already established is completely bogus, is not also trying to lift probably 90-ton submarine, I think we're good, as long as we're calling it, as long as we're putting that plot hole in the bucket of Eric's special powers that we don't know about.
I think you're applying too much physics to this problem.
Physics? I love science. Yeah, I don't know.
Cut to 10 minutes ago of Nick saying, helmets, chemicals, science.
Chemicals, science. That's kind of how this whole movie's feeling. It's like, all right, I'm going to lift a 90-ton piece of steel with an SR-71, which is not accurate.
Another plot hole that I noticed in this movie, watching it probably like the third time or fourth time that I've seen it, is Shaw is, during this time that the submarine's being lifted, he's holding on to the nuclear reactor that's inside the submarine, trying to amplify it and do things with it, and his head's kind of splitting because of the radiation or whatever, not hurting him, but he's absorbing a bunch of energy. But then the submarine just gets thrown onto the beach by Magneto. And then, so like the last thing we saw was Shaw holding on to these nuclear rods. And then when we cut back to him again, he's still holding on to the nuclear rods. Did he not feel any of like the movement and rotation and forces that, I mean, again, we're going into physics. I mean, it's a plot hole.
Mike,
of how did he not fly
It's not
around?
a plot hole. It's not a plot hole. It's just called science.
No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works.
X-Men and Toy Story don't know how science works. Confirmed.
Just wait until the
basically
next...
no movies know how science works. I'd like to see a movie that actually uses science correctly, please and thank you.
I would say that one movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, the something machine.
Doctor Who?
No,
Strange? Doctor Strange?
Not Doctor Strange.
I just offended like 2 whole fandoms. Ouch.
No, the Turing Machine, I think. The one that...
I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's a really good one.
No.
It's also based in World War II, I think. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so then you get kind of the climactic scene of everyone on the beach fighting each other, right?
Yeah.
You get the bad guys find the good guys. You get the screaming banshee guy flying around the ships and just really weird side scene.
So... yeah, I think this is
the Imitation Game.
This is kind of where
that's what the movie's called. Sorry,
I just looked it up. Yeah, it's called Imitation Game. Yeah, I just looked it up. Behind every code is an enigma. Yeah, so this is this is probably part of the movie that I liked the most, because the line got really, really, really blurry about good guys and bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
And especially after Sebastian Shaw got killed with the Nazi coin, which was kind of fitting and cool. That all
Crazy
happened
scene.
like super slowly and super painfully. I like that. It was rewarding to see.
And Charles is in his mind at the time, so he's basically got like a virtual coin going
Yeah.
through his mind and feeling all the feelings that Shaw is feeling, and a lot of feelings.
Yeah. I don't know why Charles just didn't disconnect. But
Because if he disconnected, then Shaw would have been able to kill Eric, I believe. I think that's the reason why Charles stayed in Shaw's mind. Because if he let go, then Shaw could hurt Eric. And then it's basically, if he lets go, he kills a friend. If he doesn't let go, he's not really killing a friend, but he's allowing a friend to commit murder. So he'd rather have his friend commit murder and try to sway him later, which... at the end of the movie we see doesn't work.
Yeah, that doesn't work. So yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so maybe that wasn't a plot
At
hole
least that was my reasoning.
No, I think that's perfectly logical reasoning. In this universe where people can fly and manipulate metal objects with their brain. Yeah, and our Star 71s have huge cargo bays with bomb doors in the bottom. Mm-hmm.
And then we get the next scene of Magneto grabbing all the missiles that, for some reason, Cuba and the U.S. point at the beach because they're like, "Oh, mutants,
mutants,
science."
Science, also communication. They're. I'm sure everyone up in Washington and in the Kremlin are like worried about the missiles still, right? Like they're not worried about the people on the beach with the sub.
Mutants.
Like
we fire all the missiles at
they're
the
still prime thing, exactly. But then instead of they're just like, oh yeah, mutants, kill them, and it's fitting because that's how it would go down, right? Like if there were a bunch of mutants, I think most countries would put their political differences aside and rally for the common good of the world, and fight the aliens or the mutants or whoever, right? So I think it's pretty realistic that both the U.S. and the Russians don't want the mutants to exist, so we might as well team up.
Well, you got Shaw kind of swindling both sides, so they already kind of
so Shaw was the instigator, right? But I think after Shaw was dead, they were both trying to get rid of the mutants. Yeah, I don't know. That whole scene with the missiles is just kind of like, really? Okay. It kind of felt like I know no one's going to die with these missiles. Someone's going to figure out something. Like either Devil Man's going to take everyone away
you get,
or what. It's
Magneto trying to fling the missiles and then he gets tackled by Eric or someone and then the missiles start falling. Yeah. And it's like, brevity. Yep. And then Magneto gets back up and then starts flying them again, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna die!" And then they fall again. Then they fly. Then they fall and fly. It's just, is it gonna hit them or not? And then they turn around
back towards the ships, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, wow, wow."
Then we get like the most, I guess, the very climax of this movie, where we get Moira being Moira, who is the U.S. agent, trying to shoot at Magneto, trying to stop him. And you get Magneto like, nah, you're not going to shoot me. I got magnetic powers, and deflects a bullet and goes into his buddy, which he didn't want. He didn't want to kill Eric. Yeah. Or, sorry, not Eric, Charles. He didn't want to kill Charles.
Which is so interesting. Like, the proposed good guy and the proposed bad guy of the movie, don't want each other to die, which is, I think, what is going to keep me around for the next X-Men, because I'm used to seeing a movie where the good guy and the bad guy want to kill each other. And for some reason, the good guy and the bad guy here, obviously Sebastian was the bad guy for a large percentage of the movie, but I think underlying, Eric was always going to be the bad guy. Even from the Nazi scene in Argentina, I was like, yeah, Eric's going to be the bad guy. Just has too much darkness. But like seeing these two characters that respect each other, and I think, however you described it, and maybe we'll learn about this in the next movie, where it's more of a chess game. Like, it does feel like a chess game where like there are two chess masters who are sitting there trying to outsmart each other in a game, but at the end of the day, they'll still shake hands at the end. It's not going to be like try to kill each other off. Although it does. I'm sure it'll get bloody and high tension stakes and stuff. But I appreciated the fact that even Eric was distraught that Charles got hurt. And it's like, wow, that's not something you see every day in a big movie where the bad guy's legitimately concerned for the good guy, and it doesn't feel contrived or doesn't feel nasty. It's just like, the good guy's worried about the bad guy, and the bad guy's worried about the good guy. Like, that's a nice world. Can I live there, please?
Eric just wanted a friend in the end, and he had
Yeah.
it, but he ruined it by his own history, or not really history, but his emotional response from Shaw killing his family and having that vengeance.
Which is not unjustified. I mean,
No.
if you had to pick a storyline to justify a bad guy's backstory, I think that's probably the most justifiable one.
I wanted to kind of note as well, you mentioned how Shaw is very much like, oh, mutants are going to rise up and take over the world, and they are definitely the superior being. But Charles kind of has the same thoughts as well, just on a more logical, like not thermonuclear war basis. He's like, no, X-Men, like their cousin, Homo sapiens, who he's basically just describing humans. He's like, I mean, that mutants are going to, of course, they're the next step in humanity. It makes sense because they have better survival rates, or not survival rates, but they're able to protect themselves more, and they're able to pass their genes off more. It only means that they're going to be able to, I don't know, become a little bit more powerful in the world, which you kind of see that in the following movies. But yeah, very similar, two sides of a coin.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, and now that you mention it, I think that does make a ton of sense. But at the same time, I would also say that the Charles motives they might be morally more pure and more logical, but he I don't know how. Obviously, I've seen him in Logan, the half of Logan that I saw, so I kind of know
you've
how
seen the
he's going
beginning
to
of him,
end
and
up.
now you've seen kind of the end of him.
I guess I don't know how he dies, but anyway, I saw him, being a broken man, I guess, in the first half of Logan that I saw. So I don't really know what happens between point A and point B, but something turns Professor X from a powerful, knowledgeable, smart, witty character to a broken, unsure man that is fearful.
It might surprise you, but we might get a glimpse of that soon.
Okay, so yeah, I think that'll be the most interesting arc to watch going forward in this series for me. Watching Professor X turn into this, because like he exudes confidence right now. Like when he was at his college graduation party or whatever, drinking away, he hit on the CIA agent lady like really smartly, right? And so he's like, oh, mutants, so
I mean, he had at the very beginning, right? He dragged his half sister to, or I guess not really half sister, but adopted sister, to the bar, and then he starts picking up chicks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's a very confident character. Like I never detected a moment of inconfidence. Like, he is confidently leading this team. He is confidently talking to the CIA. He is confidently standing up to the bad guys. He's a very confident character. And to see him in Logan at the end of his character arc, multi-movie character arc, is very broken and disheveled. I'm interested to see what happens between point A and point B, because
kind of like
there's
you were
going to be a lot.
saying, he was even confident on the beach when he got shot, right? I mean, it didn't go through him. They kind of make that point when they're like, oh yeah, these suits are bulletproof and lightweight or whatever. But they show the scene where Magneto's kind of taking the impacted bullet from Charles's spine out, not out of his body, but out of the suit, basically. And you get Charles just like, no, I just care about you, man. Like, this is all I wanted. I just wanted to help you. And Eric's just like, I don't want this.
Interesting. I guess I skipped over that dialogue in my mind, but yeah, I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah, and then we get the fake ocean zoom out.
Oh no, we got to talk about the last big point here.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah,
Eric doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Eric recruits a bunch of good guys. So who all goes over? I watched it twice, and I specifically wanted to make note of who went over, but it was so quick, and there's so many characters, I don't remember who.
So basically,
is
all
the
the bad guys who survived. So I think it's Zazel, Tornado Guy.
Zazel's the demon dude, right?
Yeah, sorry, Demon Dude, Tornado Guy, Angel, who's the butterfly lady.
Butterfly.
And then Raven.
Raven, and then was Beast also bad guy?
No, he
No.
stayed.
Okay, interesting. All right.
Yeah. Hank McCoy that's his name in the movie. Eventually becomes a senator. So for
As
mutants,
Beast?
basically. Yeah.
Oh, that's
There's some
interesting.
comedic scenes in, I think, is it
Kind
X2 or
of,
X3?
kind of reminds me of something that happened in January. Some guy sitting in the Senate president's seat with the big horns. It's too soon to laugh about that. I hope
no.
not. But that is entertaining.
So yeah, they
What I
all
did
leave.
appreciate about this, what I did appreciate about this end scene is nobody seemed to be leaving on angry terms with each other. Like they all legitimately seemed to be sad that they were being pulled away from each other. Like Raven, said to Beast, "Don't be afraid to be yourself," or something like
Mutant
that.
and proud.
And like, yeah, you mutant and proud. Thank you. Yeah, and you can tell like these characters want to be together, but they just are ideologically different. And I think Raven was probably attracted to Eric in the fact that he embraces her for who she is and embraces mutants for who they are. Where Professor X seems to be, hide your mutantness unless
Put your
it's
clothes on,
necessary.
lady.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that. But I don't know. I don't know.
No.
I like it. I like it. It was something I don't see very often in movies where like the good guys and the bad guys don't really want to fight each other and they kind of all like each other, but for some slightly ill-defined reason they need to, but it still feels like real. So anyway, it was good.
Yeah. I think it was a fun movie. I enjoyed it a lot. Besides the corniness at the end with Moira being like, "Oh, so what are you gonna do?" And he's like, "I'm gonna make a school, Xavier's
Yeah.
school for gifted children." Yeah, that sounds like a good thing. You're like an X-Men. Oh yeah, we're like X-Men. Oh yeah, and I'm gonna be here with you, right? No.
Are you gonna remember anything? Nope. I promise I won't tell anything. Oh yeah, I'm sure you won't. Let me just fix that for you real
You
quick.
get the typical scene right after that where the government people were like, "You don't remember anything." She's like, "No." And they're like, "See, this is why we can't have a woman here." It's like, oh, geez, come on.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's very accurate for like the
60s.
time, right?
Yeah.
But it's still
Yeah,
just like,
unfortunately.
oh, why do we need this scene?
Yeah, I know. And then obviously they break Crystal Lady out, and
Yeah,
we have
with
the Magneto.
Eric's paint
Roll
job
credits.
all over his outfit, red and caped, and I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it was really smart though. I mean, they kind of gave I don't know if this is in the comics, but they definitely gave a reason why Eric wears this helmet. It's because he doesn't
Yeah.
want Charles in his mind.
Mind controllers.
Yeah.
Or Crystal Lady.
Or Crystal Lady. Yeah. So, I don't know. Just
Yeah.
very interesting reasons. But what'd you think of the visuals in this, Nick? For a 2011 movie, right?
They were fine. I mean, the real stuff was good. Like, they obviously had a good DP, a director of photography. They had good sets. They had good locations. I appreciated the real stuff, but the CG was not great 2011 CG. In 2011, we had some good CG. I mean, heck, Toy Story 3 was 2010, and that's some good CG. Right?
I want to point out.
What do you want to point out?
After the movie ended, HBO Max recommended me a movie, and that movie's called Green Lantern.
Oh, I have not seen that, but
Oh,
I've heard people
no.
rag about it on the internet.
It's known
And that
for
one's-
just being a CGI mess, and
Okay. So HBO's like, oh, you enjoyed this CGI mess, so here's another one for you.
there's a worse one. This is a whole lot
Oh.
better in my regards of visuals,
Yikes.
but you haven't seen it, and also we're trying to treat this as not really a standalone movie, but how the visuals were in this movie alone.
Yeah. So I will say all of the real stuff was great. I enjoyed all of that. The scenes that really fell apart were the high action CGI scenes. Even a few of the CGI scenes looked fine as long as they weren't, action packed. Like the ships and stuff, obviously that was all CG, and those looked fine. There wasn't anything wrong with that. But for some reason, whenever that kid was flying with his voice, the voice box
Banshee.
guy, that was some terrible CG. Like the sight lines didn't match up, lighting wasn't the same, and then it was bad. Like I think he flew 2 or 3 times, one from base jumping and then 2 during the action scene, and both times I was just like, ugh, I can't watch this.
A little bit too cringy.
Yeah, so I think those his that character's CGI stuff was definitely to the point where it was making my eyes bleed and me not want to watch it. But other than that, it was fine.
I think
So,
one of my favorite
yeah.
scenes in this whole entire movie is with Havoc in the bunker practicing his aiming ability of his powers. And you get the really cool visual of like, I think it's maybe the first or second time that he does it, and then Charles enters the room to see if he hit the target, and it's just a ring of fire spiraling towards the target. And it's just like fire all over the floors and walls and ceiling. It's beautiful. I don't know if it, I'm sure it's not real, but it looked pretty real. I thought, wow, this is,
That didn't stand out to me. I'm gonna have to pull that up and watch it.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just like, wow, this is interesting looking. Like, they could have easily just been like, oh no, there's just energy light beams all over the walls and it looks very terrible. But instead, they added fire, which I thought was a nice touch, kind of showing his abilities as Havoc. Is his
Yeah.
superhero name, I guess.
Yeah, I liked him as a character. I think he did a fine job as an actor, and the character was well developed and stuff. So, yeah, I'm excited to see more about Havoc and
So, what
all
would
of them.
you like to see actually in the next movie, Nick? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to with some of the characters or events that they tackle? Because they're still in the 60s, right? Or at least we left off with these characters in the 60s.
We got
So.
tons of time. Yeah. I think the most interesting thing for me will be Magneto and Professor X's character development. I'd like to learn more about mutants. This one satisfied that itch pretty well as far as what's a mutant, how do you become a mutant, where do they come from, all that fun stuff, and how do they work. But I would definitely love to see more mutant people. I'm sure as Professor X fills out his school, there'll be more mutants to see and more powers to see. I think every single one seems to be fairly well thought through. Although voice box guy is not my favorite.
I don't think he
but
gets
like even
revisited.
Hank. Oh, good. I hope not. Even Hank, was a simple idea, but it really shows. He isn't smart because of his mutation necessarily. He's smart because he put his mind to it, because his mutation made him feel unworthy as a kid, and so he would work really hard to be the best at something. And it's that kind of a well thought through mutant that has an interesting power, but then is also interesting for reasons that are not just their power. That I'd like to see. So yeah, pretty much Eric, Professor X, and some of the mutants. Other than that, I think this movie has restored my hope in the X-Men universe. Sorry, Origins did not help out in that regard at all. But this one, I'm like, okay, maybe there's a few other gems in here, so we'll keep watching. And I think overall, taking another step back even from that, I'm just happy that I get to experience a new universe for the first time. That doesn't happen very frequently for me, at least at this point in my life, where, I've already seen The Office 80 times. I've already seen Star Wars a million times. I know all about Marvel. And being able to step into an entirely new, like, fairly deep and detailed and nuanced universe that I previously hadn't seen anything about or really knew anything about is kind of fun. So I'm enjoying the ride here. So, yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That warms my heart. I'm glad that it seems like we're taking the right path with the X-Men universe. When we were talking about it after one of the podcasts that we were talking, like, I think it was Star Wars, right? We were going to do Phantom Menace. We're like,
yeah.
Let's not do Phantom Menace.
I was like, yeah, dude, I don't want to rag on more Star Wars. I just finished ragging on the whole OG trilogy, and that was the trilogy I thought I liked.
Yeah. But I think the steps that we're taking with X-Men is a pretty good path, because we're avoiding all the corny political type of things that were introduced in X-Men 1, 2, and 3. And we're kind of going straight to more of the emotional action bits. Yeah, there's going to be a few things that you might miss out on when we get to when we get to the next X-Men movie, you're going to be like, whoa, what the heck's happening? And then because it takes place after X-Men 3. Or at least I'll just stop talking because I don't want to spoil it. But there's characters that are talked about in the next movie that you're like, wait, hold on, we haven't met these characters yet in my path of this movie series. But if you watched it canonically, you'd be like, oh, it's that guy.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Hmm.
and then you get to another movie that is very much like almost directly after X-Men 3 with Wolverine dealing with what happened in X-Men 3. Um,
Oh.
and that's a really good one. I really enjoy X-Men. Excuse me. X-Men Wolverine, I believe is what the movie's called. That we'll get to at some point. Really good movie, in my opinion. I loved it. I always forget the ending somehow, but I enjoy that one. But no, I'm very excited to see your responses to all these movies that we're going to be visiting, Nick,
Yeah.
in the X-Men universe.
I am as well, and thanks for setting us all up, and finding a good path of X-Men movies to watch, and it's been engaging so far, and I'm looking forward to reviewing another one with you in a couple of weeks here.
It's a hard
So,
labyrinth sometimes.
any closing thoughts there? I'm sorry, what?
It's a hard labyrinth with a lot of these movies,
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
navigate what is
There's a
a
lot of
good
bad
path.
ones to avoid.
Well, yeah, just
Well, you've
all the
been
things
doing a
that
good job.
happen because it's impossible to follow this thing canonically or like be able to understand what's going on without double backing or being like, wait, hold on, this character is this character. I don't know. I guess for final thoughts, I enjoyed X-Men First Class. I think it stands as a great movie for kind of rebooting the franchise. Definitely did a good job introducing the main heroes/villains that we're going to be following, and it doesn't trip up too much besides on maybe some CG stuff that they're still trying to work out, and maybe some of the characters' motives slash I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think the next movie is really supported, and I think that's where trilogies and series shine. I think this is a really good start for X-Men in that regard, even though that this is not the beginning of X-Men. The beginning of X-Men is X-Men 1, 2, and 3, which I cannot say enough. But anyways, what about you, Nick? Any final thoughts besides
Well,
my
yeah,
ramblings?
I'm excited here. This is going to be a good review series. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, go ahead and smash that subscribe button or dislike. I don't really care. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we will see y'all next week for a review of a Pixar movie because that's our trend. See you guys all later.
Bye.
Have a good one. Godspeed.